She smiled when she heard the key turn in the lock. Not the kind of smile that greets a loved one after a long day. No. This was the smile she'd practiced in front of the mirror for the past 3 weeks, subtle, almost invisible, but burning inside. "Hey, honey," he said, slipping off his jacket and tossing it over the chair in the hallway. "Smells amazing." "Apple pie," she replied without turning from the stove. "Your favorite." He chuckled, as if it were only natural, as if he deserved it. As if he didn't know that every teaspoon of cinnamon in that pie was a reminder of the night, 3 weeks ago, when she'd asked, "Did you cheat on me?" He laughed then, not cruelly, not nervously, but lightly, as if the question were absurd. "Are you out of your mind?" he'd said, pouring himself a glass of wine, as though that alone was answer enough. But she'd seen it. She'd seen how his fingers had frozen for a split second on the neck of the bottle. She'd seen how he glanced away just before meeting her eyes again. And in that moment, she'd understood, the truth wasn't in his words. It was in the silence between them. Their house stood on a quiet suburban street where neighbors knew each other by name and children still played in the yards after school. White shutters, a neatly trimmed lawn, a swing set in the backyard, though the kids had long since grown and moved away. Their daughter was in college out of state. Their son worked downtown and visited once a month. They were both in their 50s, and they'd weathered everything together. Childbirth, career changes, the deaths of parents, roof repairs, midlife crises, everything except this. She'd always thought that if betrayal ever came, she'd feel it instantly. But no. She noticed it in the details. First, the new shirts. Then the increasingly frequent late meetings at work. Then the scent of perfume, floral, light, nothing she'd ever bought. She didn't make a scene. She didn't snoop through his phone. She didn't cry into her pillow. Instead, she started cooking more than usual. Pies, casseroles, soups, everything he loved. And every time she chopped vegetables or whisked batter, she thought, how could you? They'd married 28 years ago in a small chapel in the rain. She remembered how tightly he'd held her hand, as if afraid she'd vanish. She remembered him crying the night their son was born. She remembered him sitting by their daughter's bedside for hours when she was sick. He'd been a good father. A good husband. Or so it had seemed. But now she knew, a good husband doesn't look at another woman the way he used to look at her in their early years. And he had looked. She'd seen it in his eyes when he thought she wasn't watching. "You're home early," she said, placing a slice of pie on the table. "Yeah, the meeting got canceled," he replied, sitting down. "By the way, I'm leaving tomorrow for 2 days. Conference in Salt Lake City." She nodded, pouring tea. "Utah." Again. The 3rd time in 2 months. "Same hotel as last time?" she asked casually. "Yeah, probably." "Not sure." He looked down at his fork. She didn't press. She just smiled, that same quiet smile. He left early the next morning. She kissed him on the cheek at the door and wished him luck. When his car disappeared around the corner, she returned to the kitchen, pulled out her laptop, and opened a folder labeled Account. Inside were photos, restaurant receipts, hotel booking screenshots, call logs, and one short video filmed from the balcony of the neighbor's house during his business trip a month ago. In it, he stepped out of a car with a woman young, laughing, his hand resting lightly on her waist. She didn't know who she was. And she didn't want to. It was enough to know he'd chosen lies. Chosen betrayal. Chosen someone else over the woman who'd spent 28 years building a life with him. But she wasn't going to scream. She wasn't going to demand a divorce. She wasn't going to cry in front of the kids. No. She chose a different path, one that required patience, precision, and cold calculation. She started small. First, his bank account. She knew the passwords, he never changed them, always saying, "Everything's under control." She transferred a portion of their funds into a savings account in her name alone, the one he didn't know existed. Then she checked the deed to the house. Her name was on it too. Next came insurance policies, retirement accounts. Everything she could protect, she secured. But it wasn't enough. She wanted him to feel it, not just lose money or a house, but to feel the same pain she did. The same emptiness. The same betrayal. And so she planned the dinner. He returned 2 evenings later, tired, but satisfied. She greeted him with a glass of wine and that familiar smile. "How was the conference?" she asked, taking his jacket. "Great. Very productive." He reached for the wine and took a sip. "Did you bake another pie?" "No," she said. "Tonight's dinner is special. Sit down." Candles flickered on the table. A crisp white tablecloth. Silverware reserved only for holidays. He raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" "I just wanted to talk," she said, sitting across from him. He tensed, but the wine and exhaustion softened his guard. She served salad first, then roasted chicken with herbs. Finally, dessert, a cake she'd baked all day. "You seem different tonight," he said, cutting into the cake. "I just realized something," she said softly. "I've been wondering why you've become so distant, why you stopped telling me about your day, why you travel so much." He froze, fork in hand. "And?" he asked carefully. "That you have a right to your life," she said. "To your mistakes. To your secrets." He paled. "What are you talking about?" "Utah," she said. "The woman with the floral perfume. The way you laughed with her in the rain last month." He shot to his feet. "You've been spying on me?" "No," she replied calmly. "I just stopped being blind." He sank back into his chair as if struck. Fear flashed in his eyes, then anger. "You don't understand. It was nothing. It meant nothing. To you, maybe," she said. "But to me, it was everything." He fell silent. She let him sit with it. Let him taste his own betrayal. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "Nothing," she said. "I've already taken everything." He didn't understand. Not yet. But he would. The next morning, he discovered his access to their joint account had been revoked. A letter from a lawyer arrived. She'd filed for divorce. But not just any divorce. She'd included evidence of his financial misconduct at work. She hadn't known about it before, but once she started digging, she found it. Small transfers, falsified invoices, off-the-books bonuses. Enough to trigger an investigation. He called. He texted. He begged. He threatened. She didn't reply. A week later, he was fired. A month passed. She stayed in the house. He rented an apartment downtown. The kids were stunned, but she simply said, "He betrayed all of us." They believed her. They always trusted their mother. Then one evening, the doorbell rang. He stood on the porch, no jacket, clean-shaven, holding a manila folder. "I brought the papers," he said. "I'll sign whatever you want. Just tell me why you didn't leave right away." She looked at him. No anger. No pain. Just weariness. "Because revenge isn't a scream," she said. "It's when you make someone realize they didn't just lose a wife. They lost a home, a family, trust, and themselves." He lowered his head. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Forgiveness isn't my gift," she replied. "It's your work." She closed the door, not slammed it. Just closed it. 6 months have passed. She planted new flowers in the garden. Signed up for painting classes. Sometimes her daughter visits. They sip tea on the porch and laugh over old photos. And him? Word is he moved to another state. Works as a mechanic's assistant now. Lives in a small apartment. Calls his son sometimes, but the replies are short. She doesn't think about him often. But when she does, there's no pain, only peace. Because revenge isn't poison. It's a mirror. And sometimes, to destroy a betrayer, you only need to show him who he's become.